Hello and welcome to another episode of Gaming at the Round Table. I'm Crystal with Maverick and JoJo. So to kick this one off, I'm not really quite sure where to go with this, if I'm being quite honest. So we're going to be talking about some of the games that we think are going to change the course of 2025. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the one that I have, just because I am legitimately excited for this. Split Fiction. Now, this is from the creators of It Takes Two. And I remember when It Takes Two came out, I don't even actually know. I don't think it was when it first came out. It was a while after that people started finally picking it up and realized that the game was like,
I think that was a slow burn of a game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but now if you Google what's the best game to play with your significant other, it's going to
Right.
be on that list for
Mhm.
sure.
So now we're going to have Split Fiction, which is a completely different look genre of game, because It Takes Two was like a cutesy family looking game, whereas Split Fiction is like a sci-fi fantasy game.
But they both
So,
share a couple of things, right?
right. They both share the split screen where, they both have to work together in order to accomplish the tasks and whatnot. So I think this game is going to take over as far as co-op games goes for this year. I'm very excited for it. I don't know. Have you guys seen it?
Yes,
I
I've
saw
seen
a
a preview.
tad bit of it, but I didn't see more than the fact that it came from that company.
I think this is up all of our alley, and I'd be very interested in trying it with you guys for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And now that we all have the same console, we can.
Yes. So what about you guys?
I will let you take this one first.
Sure. Shall I take Marvel Rivals?
Go ahead.
I mean, that's
No, you can take that one.
No. I actually have one in mind. So, you guys might have heard of a small game. It kind of was famous for a little bit. It was called
No.
Skyrim.
Never heard of it.
No, never heard of it. Elder Scrolls, Oblivion, that kind of thing. No. All right. Well, I believe they're coming out with Elder Scrolls 6 in 2026. Now, how does that pertain to what I'm saying? 2025, there is a competitor coming out called Avowed, and it's got a very similar vibe to the Skyrim. It's a fantasy world with might and magic and fantasy creatures and humanoids, but it's kind of got that like grittiness to it that Skyrim had, where and you're walking around with the perspective. I think it's called, what is that, first person?
Is it first person?
Is it
over
where you're
shoulder?
just seeing the hands?
Yeah, where you see like your hands and you fight, you cast spells, but like you only see the front part of your character. So it's got this similar vibe to it, and the world is relatively similar. And I think it's been so long since the industry's gotten like a Skyrim type game that seemed similar to Skyrim and wasn't just like another Elder Scrolls game. So this will be a good competitor, and it looks pretty good. The graphics are on par with what I would expect from a Skyrim-like game, and I think the industry's itching for something like that for all the fantasy RPG nerds that are kind of burning out on the D&D games, which were huge for a while, Baldur's Gate 3 and that kind of stuff.
Still
get out of the turn-based and get into the more live combat realm. And I think that's where Avow is really going to take that niche and revivify it in 2025. I've got others on my list, but I'll let Joe go next.
So the game that I'm hoping it does get released, because it says like initial release date and there's not like a set date on it. It just says initial release dates in 2025, and that's Fable.
Yeah.
So I am a massive Fable fan from the 360 era, and that game I think changed role playing games for me in a way where I can't play certain games now because it just doesn't feel like it has the effect.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that you can make a choice and then there is a lasting effect to that choice. So I think that if it goes back to its roots in that aspect, I think that's going to be a game changer and kind of pull people back into that realm of things, because it was kind of like the average Joe's RPG where you didn't have to know all the crit stats or the magic stats or all that other stuff, and you just kind of like, I like story games, but I don't like getting lost in 50 layers of like, how did my spell just magically stop working because I picked the wrong skill.
Yeah.
So my hope is that Fable kind of like pulls it back to that, and that's kind of like my finger crossed game of 2025. Another game that I'm going to mention, because we were mentioning older games that are kind of popping back up, and it's not even going to be a question if it's going to have an effect. I know it's going to have an effect, and that's Grand Theft Auto 6.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
I think that's going to be kind of the Moab of the year, and that's my nice way of saying that it's going to really pull some stuff.
People are already talking about GTA 6 being like the most likely game of the year for 2025, and like it's January.
My favorite thing is seeing on like social media, like, oh, we got this before we got Grand Theft Auto 6. It's like the biggest meme. People aren't even going to know how to act when the game actually comes out.
I mean, that'd be the game to bring back like midnight release. Like if that was still a thing where you could go to the store and like hop in line or like chit chat with other people waiting, I think that would be the game to do it.
I had some thoughts about GTA 6 and the notions you just touched on, so I'm going to try to talk quickly. So GTA 6 returned to Vice City. First of all, it's returning to Vice City, which was a favorite location in the GTA universe, so that's a factor. Additionally, the AI and funny reactions in 5, I think, were like a hit, and they make great internet content. So that's probably going to continue and create more internet content. So GTA 6, even if it's not even amazing as a game, if it at least matches 5, content creators are going to love it, and streamers are going to love it. The internet at large is going to love it. Open world American, it has this like counter fantasy aspect to it for all the people that like role-playing games, but don't want to play an elf in a great, magical land. GTA 6 is America with guns and cars and skydiving and hookers and everything you can list in the major cities, right? So it's like complete opposite side of the spectrum there. Okay, Miss Pink Hair, calm down.
No, thank you.
It's a built-in sim with cars and airplanes and stuff, so the immersiveness is there. So I don't like Sim City. I don't like how like micromanagement it feels, but I do like simulation of certain things like driving cars and that kind of thing. So there's a lot packed into the GTA series at large. Getting number 6 to your credit, people have been waiting a long time. The other thing I was going to mention, which wasn't specific to GTA 6, was, and you touched on this, Joe, a little bit, I think 2025 is going to have a lot of games that change the industry or refresh parts of the industry. And most of them, I think, are going to be continuations of favorites. We talked about this a few podcasts ago in like a sentence or two where I said something like, oh, when we were talking about Game of the Year awards, gotta go fast. All right. Game of the Year awards, I was saying something like, people like what they know. Mm-hmm. That is like what the industry really is enjoying lately. So Grand Theft Auto 6, Civilization 7, Fable, Metroid Prime, I think 4, Borderlands 4, Monster Hunter, probably going to be more than one Monster Hunter because that's a cash cow. Hades 2 roguelite. Go ahead.
Death Stranding 2.
Bingo.
What was the other? Elden Ring, Night Rain.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yep. And even some that aren't direct sequels are just spiritual sequels, or it's the same company making kind of the same thing. An MMO, Amazon's Lord of the Rings. There have already been similar in that arena. I think Marvel Rivals, while it's a huge topic right now and is already changing the industry, I'll leave off on this topic. Even Marvel Rivals, in my opinion, falls into a continuation where it's refreshing a market and consequently killing the old stuff. So like, well, why would you play Overwatch when you can play Overwatch 2? And why would you play Overwatch 2 when you can play Marvel Rivals?
I want to touch on that because I feel like the reason that people jumped ship to Marvel so quickly and so heavily, I believe, is because Overwatch 2 kind of ate dirt when it took off. It wasn't like a clear takeoff and like, hey, here's our new stuff. It felt I don't think I'm the only one on this one, but I feel like it was just kind of, you called it number 2, but it was really like number 1 with a patch. And you revamped a little bit here and there, but it was still the same thing. It's like you take the new model of a car and you're kind of like, it's still a Mustang, but you just change the fender a little bit. No. I think Marvel kind
That's
of
a
took
funny
that.
analogy because I think they actually made a Mustang into like a truck at some point.
Yeah, they
Like
did.
a completely different.
Yeah, well, it's an SUV now. It's not even
Okay,
a
well,
car.
there you go.
Mhm.
So
Sorry to side rail you.
no, you're good. It just, I feel like it took that happening, and then it helped people kind of go, okay, let me change it. But the biggest thing is, it didn't only take people off of Overwatch, it took people out of other massive games.
Mhm.
And I think we can kind of skirt or touch on the topic of the fact that it's going to be probably one of the biggest games rolling into 2025 as far as streaming goes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because that's kind of how everybody judges games now, is you look at who's streaming what. You
Yep.
go on to Twitch or wherever you stream, and you look at the top 5 games being streamed, and then that's kind of how people determine, is it a good game or not.
Mm.
Because if you see your favorite streamer suddenly go from their hardcore game to something completely different, say from like a shooter, and I'm not going to name names, and then you go to like that game, it's a shooter, but it's not. So I think it's indication that people are kind of shifting off of being recycled too many times.
You know,
Yes.
I want to give major kudos to the devs of Marvel Rivals, though, because I've seen where top streamers are playing against some of the Marvel Rivals devs. And these devs, you can tell they love the game they made. So much so that they're some of the top ranked players of Marvel Rivals. So, yeah, okay, you know, they know the ins and outs better than us because obviously they had to create the characters.
That doesn't give them good reaction speed.
No, that doesn't give them good reaction speed, but it also doesn't make it to where they play the game for fun, you know?
Yeah.
You could tell that the devs actually love Marvel Rivals, which is showing in the content that they're creating. I mentioned this to you a long time ago. As a matter of fact, if you watch some of our first couple episodes, I mentioned that gaming companies don't put the love into their content anymore. And you're like,
Yeah.
what does that matter? You know, whatever. And I'm like, no, it does. Like when you're passionate about something, you're going to put more effort, more time into the project than if you don't care about it. If I don't care about it, like, you know, Overwatch or Apex, all I care about is money at that point. What do I care if it does well? Here, just have new cosmetics. I don't care about the events or anything like that.
I feel like as a developer, I need to defend a lot of the other devs. I don't know the devs for any of the other competitors, but many times as a developer in general, you're given unreasonable timelines, or the head honcho above you is like, we're going to go in X direction. And you're like, what? No. They're like, do it.
I know for sure, Apex has been cut off. EA runs that. I know the devs are not the ones to blame for the current state of that game. Now, I do blame Respawn for selling it to EA, but that's aside the point.
$1 billion is $1 billion.
Touche.
I mean, we would sell. Let's be realistic here.
Like,
If someone came to me and were like, I'll give you $30 million to buy out your company, I'd be like, okay, where do I sign?
like,
Yeah.
I'll give you my left pinky toe.
And I just
I'll wobble for fun.
I miss the days of OG, right? Like when it was loved, if you will. But the good news is we have plenty of games coming up, and I'm actually very happy to say all of them seem like actual games. I know that might seem confusing, but like there wasn't a single battle royale or anything in
like
our list.
100% live service. I mean,
Right.
Marvel Rivals is probably exactly that, but sans Marvel Rivals, which is a streaming based. The reality is, it's a competitive game that's refreshing the leagues. So gaming leagues exist. People make legitimate money being professional gamers. Almost all of them are in games that are combat against other humans, right? League of Legends, the original StarCraft series, and in this case, Marvel Rivals, Overwatch. You're not going to get people to pay you lots of money for beating a computer for the most part.
Boo.
So Marvel Rivals is in a market where it's in a competitive league.
Wait a minute. You do too. Speedrunning.
I'm not sure speedrunners make $1 million in a tournament kind of thing. That could be another topic. We could find some people and be like, hey, look at so-and-so. They sped run Mario and they made 15 Gs.
Did you know there's a dog that sped-run a game?
I mean, dogs, well.
A game. A video game. I will talk more
I feel
about
like
that later.
you're going off the rails more than I usually do today.
My mind's all over the place
She's
today.
like, random facts today for
She's
everyone.
getting ready for her Fun Fact Friday, and so all this regurgitated knowledge is coming out. That's what's happening.
It is.
It's okay.
I'm going to let you guys kind of wrap up your jeez. Wrap up
You
your
just
thoughts.
fried the back end of that one. Like,
Oh my gosh.
This is going to be a highly edited ending.
No, it's not.
All right, so Hades 2 is supposed to officially release this year. So for me, my most anticipated game that I think will also change the industry is Hades 2. It has a wonderful track record. It's got live access, early access already going. Hades 1 set the standard for roguelites, set the standard for 2D games. I can't imagine Hades 2 being any worse. And in fact, I think it's going to be absolutely stellar upon official full release.
my other game that I think is going to be a big one is Borderlands 4, just from what I've seen of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you had mentioned it earlier, but that's my second of like, hey, this is going to
Action
us something to
shooter,
do.
cooperative. Yeah, I think that market is.
I think they're
It
going
needs
back
some
to co-op
hydration.
this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Co-op, I think, is the goal for 2025.
And
which
you know
I'm not
what?
mad about.
About time, because people have been crying for co-op games. I could still remember when Maverick and I first started going out, and all we ever tried to do was find co-op games, and they just, at the time, they didn't really exist. So I guess 2025 is finally the year for co-op.
The people have been heard. Bye.
Oh, okay. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Gaming at the Round Table. I'm Crystal with Maverick and Joe. Bye.